Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Boys, Season 4, Episode 7. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I do love that we brought back Avenue V, because the last time we saw it was like some twisted version of it in Sam's eyes. But it's also like, I mean, yeah, it definitely was, because it was all like from the purview of like Sam's like broken mind. We still don't know why that's the show he gravitated towards. Maybe it's just kind of like that was kind of his safe space, whatever the case may be. Bringing it back in the form of kind of like that Vaught on Ice episode, like, oh, this is Attack on Christmas. They want us to say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. It's like that, but it's like, oh, Antifa, they're bad people, and it's like this whole song. Obviously, the outro plays the full song, and it's just like turn that loser in, that groomer. It could be your principal and his husband Chad. It's a whole thing. It's just kind of like cool. I mean, it's like they tried to come up with stuff that, you know, people do say, and then you're trying to put that in, which is so effed up that it is a catchy song despite, but you also make the arguments like that can be a lot of songs where it's like they deal with some pretty rough stuff. You're like, oh, have you ever broken down the lyrics of this, the amount how catchy it is, because you're putting it to like a kid's song theme and everything, which Ryan's not vibing with it initially. He's kind of like, oh, okay, this is kind of weird, but the director's like, yeah, but your dad signed off on all the lyrics, and it's like, oh, okay. Because now, like, once again, Ryan continues to go back and forth. Like, after, like, the whole situation with Adam, what was that, episode 5? Like, after all of... Was that episode 5 or was that 6? I don't remember. I think it was 5. But that whole back and forth, like, he felt like... Ryan felt good about his dad because he's like, oh, dad's letting me do whatever I want to. But in this episode, he got his dad's voicemail being like, yeah, just suck it up and do whatever. It's like Homelander, in that brief moment, it did seem like he was being a father. It's like, hey, it's just you and me. It's effed up. But like, we see the greater context of he's manipulating Ryan, but he's so caught up with everything else, which has always been Homelander's biggest problem. He thinks he sees the bigger picture, which sometimes he might, but he always loses the plot. He forgets the details. Like an argument a lot of people say is like, right, Homelander should have been able to hear everything that was going down at Tech Knight's place last episode, but people have pointed out he's so focused on doing what he's doing, he did not register everything that was going on. He dropped the ball last episode too, but obviously it's never my fault, it's the people around me. You should have held it down. It's like, to be fair, Vicky had to like pull you out of the fire, which he'd blame, saying like, I wouldn't have needed to be taken out of the fire if it wasn't for Sage. So obviously even he recognizes like that he's with Firecracker and he enjoys what they have, but the fact is that he has her as his second, but he knows, like, because he doesn't outwardly remove Sage until like the end of the episode, because he knows he still needs her. It's like, right, she's smart, so I need her. So he's kind of like throwing shade her way about everything, because it's like, yeah, the next time like you get a little brain damage, you'll be useless to me and everything that went down. So they've got the sixth situation played out. We've also pulling a, you know, JFK situation here. So there's a lot at play. But my point is, like, he's so distracted with everything else, he doesn't realize, because Ryan isn't a priority to him. Ryan is only a means to an end. It's like, all right, I got that locked down. He's going to stay and do what I tell him to, not recognizing, like, one, he's at that age where every kid rebels. Like, everyone kind of enters their teenage phase, especially when Ryan's realizing more and more, like, oh, Butcher, because it's the inverse of last season. Butcher said all the horrible stuff. Homelander said everything right. Homelander saying some stuff right, but he's saying some stuff wrong, whereas Butcher is starting to say everything right. So now he doesn't realize how much of a sway. Like, he thought he reined Ryan in, because the whole point is to make Ryan less human like him, even though it's like, right, Ryan is human. He was raised by a human mother. You were raised in a lab and it made you all kinds of effed up. And so for him, he can't connect. Even though he's got like that mommy fetish thing that he's had with Madeline Stillwell, Stormfront, and now Firecracker, it's still a situation of it doesn't reply. You know, you have the all-time biggest mommy issues in the world. You also have daddy issues now because of your actual father trying to kill you. So he, like I said, he's lost the plot when it comes to Ryan, and that ends up making Ryan later on decide, like, hey, I'm not going to be a part of this, singing this song. Like, you can't turn on your family and stuff like that. And he talks about his mom. It's like, my mom would never like support something like this. My mom loved Christmas, but she loved this, she loved that. Like, my mom raised me, and she would not want me to be a part of this. And you see Homelander like seeing that, like, everything's slipping from his fingertips yet again because he can never grasp onto something. There's never, like, Ryan's the closest thing he's had to holding on to something. He's held on to Ryan for the end of last season up until most of this season. He's held on to Ryan, but even Ryan's slipping away. The Madeline situation slipped away. Stormfront situation slipped away. Everything has always just been like these band-aids to fix how broken he is. And he, once again, Ryan is supposed to be everything he wanted for his life. It's like everything like I couldn't get through my life, I'm living it vicariously through Ryan because he's my legacy and stuff. And he's screwing the pooch on that. So one of the things that kept Homelander busy this episode is confronting Webweaver, who is just crapping out tons and tons of web as he's so nervous and scared. And it's like, oh, you are the leak, which, to be fair, he is a leak. He's the one that Butcher was getting a lot of info from. And it's like, I messed up, I'm sorry, and I'm just so nervous. And I was curious how Homelander was going to deal with it. And did Homelander, he continues like, even if Sage was there, she wouldn't have been able to do anything to stop him because Homelander doesn't listen to anyone but himself, despite saying he would. Because he did it with Annika. He killed her without reservation. He killed Cameron without really... I mean, to be fair, Sage co-signed that because she was covering for Adrian. We'll get to that later, but it is the aspect of he doesn't... He's 100% it. He just goes on instinct. He doesn't really think things through. He thinks he's smarter than he is. He can be diabolically intelligent in some capacities, but once again, he's just he sees things on such a macro scale sometimes, but even then he's so far up his own ass, he can't see beyond that sometimes. He can't see the forest for the trees and loses himself and misses the minute details. I was curious like what he was going to do to Webweaver. Wasn't expecting him just to rip him like that. And then just even Firecracker being like, oh my god. Is that the first time you've seen how brutal and unstable Homelander is? It's like, to be fair, like, it's the thing of you become so obsessed with someone that you kind of turn a blind eye to a lot of their flaws. You're like, yeah, you're not perfect. But no, you are perfect. You're perfect in my eyes and I won't see any of your flaws. It's like, Homelander's always been a sociopath, but I guess she's never, because she's a sociopath in her own way. I mean, they're both broken in their own ways, and I think this is our first time seeing how brutal he can be. He can be scary, because even she was scared of him last episode, but it was in this episode that it's just kind of like she saw it firsthand, what terrified everyone. The only person that wasn't afraid of him, really, was Stormfront, but every other woman in his life has been afraid of him. Madeline, and also... Firecracker herself. So I was like, cool, yeah, you finally get to see, yeah, this is the man you have suckling on your tits, the dude that you enlarged your heart a little bit for, just for the purposes of producing milks, just so it can, you know, satiate him. So I'm like, damn, bro, that is insane. So we have that side of things. And even that's not, I mean, he was tempted at the end of the episode. She's like, can I do anything for you? And it's just like, oh, it's such a twist where you're just kind of like, man, if the character Firecracker wasn't such a piece of shit, it's also because it's like, Valerie Curry is a very beautiful woman. So it's just like, it mixes you with all kinds of emotions. Like, oh, because that's the sad thing. Because even beautiful people can say the most horrendous shit. So, I mean, I'm not the only one. Other people have had that conflict of, man, if she wasn't such a shitty person, because she's very attractive. So it is that thing of like, oh yeah, she's putting her boobs in his face, like, and he's just like, no. Even with his milk session, him literally practically licking his lips, it's like, no, I'm not going to be tempted by that right now. I just want to be left alone. So I thought that was interesting. So other than that, we had the situation with Deep. I got to talk about that really quickly. Well, I also want to talk about something else really quickly because I want to make sure I remember this. They finally came out about Cameron Coleman being dead. I was like, how? I mean, why not make it seem like he died in an accident beforehand? Because I was like, eventually he's going to be on hiatus, and like, how are you going to cover that up? They made it seem like he died from an aneurysm caused by the flu virus. If you look at the underlining, under like the prompter, like the little thing in red, it says Jenny McCarthy. It says another victim of a vaccine, because it's like Jenny McCarthy is a person who's very very outwardly spoken about being very anti-vaccine. I was like, oh, I just like, oh, the little jabs everywhere. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, so I thought that was interesting that they finally like confirmed. I was just so curious, like, why did you just do that from the beginning? But I guess it's like, I mean, you could have narratively done that. You'd also think it's the situation of, Cameron being who he is, you would almost assume he wouldn't take the vaccine anyway. So why would that, whatever the case may be, I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too deeply about it, because considering like the persona he kind of has, you would assume that he probably wouldn't have been a vaccine person anyway, but maybe he was. It becomes that conversation of, do you believe the stuff you spout or not? And even Firecracker's like, does she believe what she does? It's like, no, it's just for the purposes of, it gets you popular and everything. Yeah, so either way, circling back to the deep, him and Ambrosius, dude, this show, it's just a constant reminder. I didn't even talk about it at all last episode, but it's like, you got to give it up to Colby for just being such a team player, for all this stuff that this show like made her do last episode as Ashley, and she's just kind of like, this. I mean, even Jensen Ackles talked about some of the stuff of just like, this show. So it is that thing of like, the fact is you have Tilda Swinton saying the terms of like, literally having her say like, oh my God, you made me come so many times. It's just like, the things that this show will make people say and do is fucking insane. And everyone's kind of like, it makes you wonder, how much did they have to push her to do it? Or did she was like, no, I'm actually okay with this. I don't know why. It's just funny. And like, I was like, oh, so her and Kevin are in a good place. I was like, that's interesting. It's like, oh, they're very loving, and it seems nice. And then he gets a text from Sage, and then he just kind of immediately dumps. It's like, oh man, here's the guy having an affair. It's like, oh, we haven't really utilized it, even though it's been happening. We haven't really utilized the affair situation. But it's like, oh yeah, it's like a hyperbolized version of it. It's like, yeah, let me put you back in your tank and let me bounce. Yeah, babe, you could move into my tank after I move some of the more like other fish out of it. Yeah, whatever. Comes back later on, and Ambrosius is like, I know you've been with Sage. He's like, what? It's like, yes, I know you've been with her. I can smell her and taste her on you. But the fact is, Ambrosius was like, yes, she doesn't love you. She doesn't see you for the special person that you are. She's just using you. And to be fair, she 100% is. And he's just so idiotic that he doesn't recognize that, because it's like, right, she said everything she needed to say. Basically, it's almost interesting. It feels like it feels like an inverse of like, the thing of like, yeah, a guy will say whatever he needs to say to like, not all guys, but sometimes guys can like say whatever they need to say just for the purposes of getting you in bed. Sage is kind of filling that role. It's like, yeah, I'll say whatever it needs to say to boost your ego for the purpose of getting you in a sack. But he's like, no, she respects me. And it's like, no, she doesn't. She's never respected you. The fact of the matter is, after she lobotomized herself the first time in episode 3, and like in the context of the show, lobotomized herself and slept with you, and then like treated you like shit the next episode, that should have been a sign of like, that's how she really views you. She has to lobotomize herself just to get with you. That should have been a sign. We'll touch on that in a second, but oh my God, poor Ambrosius, because she was like, right, and he ends up smashing the tank, and she ends up suffocating and dying. I was like, that's so sad. Even while that situation is going on, I'm like, it's sad. She legitimately loves you, despite you being a piece of shit. She loves you, flaws and all, and you couldn't love her because it's like, right, she has 4 legs, and I love Ambrosius being like, that's so messed up. I can't help that. She has 8. But it's like, yeah, and I loved how extensive, how long that scene is, because it seems like at multiple times she stops talking and gasping, and then she starts up again. They did it like 3 times. I was like, Kevin, maybe you can like come in there and try to save her at the last second, but still not be able to save her. He had multiple opportunities, and her last words were, I love you. It's like, it's so sad. And the situation broke him. I mean, we've already seen that. He's already been a dark character to begin with, but we've seen that darkness, especially that conversation he had with Noir last episode. We've seen it even more where he's like, I will kill every fish in the ocean if that's what you ask me for. And Homelander's like, okay. It almost seemed like he was looking at Deep like, I've never seen that side of you. Like, he was almost like, but also like, he's probably like, what the fuck was that about? Whatever. Probably like brushing it off, but it almost seemed like he was for a moment, seemed like he might have been like, you're not the useless piece of shit you normally are, Deep. Like, I didn't have to convince you. You're willing to kind of be a good soldier. So, yeah, I'll get to the whole him and Noir situation later on in the context of the fight. But I love the reveal where they're doing that whole thing. They're walking down the hallway and they're like, bro. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Is this dude, where's my car? With the very like, dude, and everything. Like, it kind of gave me that vibe. And they just kept going, bro. And then Sage is leaving. And it turns out she's been sleeping with Black Noir too. And he's like, wait, she lobotomized herself to sleep with you? He's like, lobotomize? I was like, yo, she only lobotomizes herself to sleep with you. Despite her being like the most intelligent person, you thought, I was under the impression it wasn't just deep, like she would do that with anyone because everyone's lower than her on the scale. But it's like, no, you're such a stupid piece of shit. I have to lobotomize myself to bring myself down so low, my standards so low that I would sleep with you. I don't even have to do that with Black Noir. That makes you feel like, and just him looking at Black Noir being like, bro, it's like it's supposed to be bros with the previous Black Noir, and now like new Noir you're supposed to be bros with. Like, you had your moment last episode, and now it's like, oh, that was all bullshit too. It's like everything comes crumbling down. You killed the love, your love, who loved you wholeheartedly for nothing, you know, for someone who doesn't love you. So yeah, every relationship Kevin's had is kind of blown up in his face because, I'm curious how we're going to see Cassandra. It'd be so interesting if he tried to run back to Cassandra after this. I mean, considering like the public situation in Too Deep and all that, which we haven't really heard from Cassandra since like the first episode of like Kevin like trying to debunk everything she said, you know, doing the Amber Heard thing of, yeah, and she also shit in my bed. So we haven't really like dealt with her. So it'd be interesting if he tried to run back to her now. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out for Kevin. Not only is he like demented, and which he already was, but he's even further off the deep end, pun intended. Plus, he's brokenhearted now twofold because he killed Ambrosius, which sent him further off the edge, and now like him and Sage aren't even a thing. So we shall see where the hell that ends up going. Okay, so breaking down some other stuff, we had Butcher bringing himself to the team to reveal to them, yeah, so this is what's going on. I kidnapped Samir. It's like, wait, you cut off his leg? Yeah. Try to make him to make the virus, but it would turn into a global pandemic situation. So he's like, right, I'm not that big of a piece of shit. Just like episode 5 being like, right, I might have like made a deal with Vicky, but I didn't go through if that should count for something. It's like, yeah, I might have kidnapped Samir, cut off his leg, and trying to force him to make a virus that could wipe out all suits, but I'm not that fucking batshit crazy. I don't want that much blood on my hands, which argument could be, well, there's a part of you that does, because you have always wanted that. You've wanted suits wiped out from the beginning. It's not like that came out of nowhere. Joe isn't just like, oh, it's like that's how you felt in the past. Your angel and demon are conflicting with you, which obviously speaks volumes that like it's always been kind of a tug of war. This episode it isn't. It's just all Joe this episode, not a hint of Becca. To be fair, she kind of pops up through the essence of Ryan like doing everything he can, not agreeing with what his dad wants him to do. So there's that element to it. So now it becomes a question of, well, he got Frenchie out of prison, which Kimiko's not too happy about that. For the purposes of, I've gone to see you multiple times and you've never let me see you. You did this thing without talking to me first. So now it becomes, they're in an awkward position. So Frenchie and Kimiko are going to keep an eye on Samir, where Frenchie ends up helping Samir polish the virus, making it so it can only be used on Homelander and Vicky, and then to kind of nip it in the bud so it's not admissible to like be used against anyone else. Whereas like Butcher, Annie, and Huey are supposed to go after the shooter that they've got set up to be the Lee Harvey Oswald of the situation. And MM's taking a back seat because it's like, after everything last episode, I continue to fumble the bag with this whole leader thing. I have my moments, but it's been a shit show. Plus my situation, I need to de-stress or I'm going to literally die of a heart attack. So Butcher, this has always been his rodeo. He gets to run things. Even he's kind of like, yeah, I'm not really in the... Because he's not explaining things. He's keeping things as a secret. He's not letting them know, hey, so you should not let me be in position because I have this whole, like, I'm seeing people thing, and I kind of black out, and Joe Kessler comes out and murders Ezekiel. Like, nah, I'm not really in the right mind state, considering part of me is all about the soup genocide thing, so... Which, quickly going over to the MM side of things, because how that involves the whole A-Train of it all, which I thought that was so beautiful how that's going. everyone has kind of been like, A-Train's dying this season. He's had too much of a good arc that it's like he's dying this season. He has to be dying this season just because it's like they're setting up this redemption for him and it's been going so well and he's become more and more of a hero for the first time. And maybe the argument could be first time ever really being a hero. But either way, A-Train ends up going to Ashley to warn her because she's drunk because she feels bad about the Cameron Coleman situation. It's like, he dumped you, but it's still like, I was pissed at him at the time. I threw him under the bus. Like, I could have found some other way to protect A-Train, but like now she's like, he was kind of like a good lay. Like they had their thing and now it's just kind of like, knowing like, well, she had to, I don't know I think this is just, with everything going on, it finally hit her. Because maybe she didn't know he was dead. She probably thought like, all right, maybe they did something to him, but I don't know if she really thought it through at the time. She was just, you know, hey, you do and say shit when you're pissed off, and she was heartbroken, and it's like, oh, you're going to dump me? I bet, got some payback for you. You know, now she's just kind of wallowing in it. It's like, right, he didn't deserve that, you know, so she's kind of wallowing in that, and A-Train's like, yo, get your shit together, because literally you got both of our lives in your hand, mine and yours, so I don't want you being drunk running your mouth. She's kind of like, and even to the point, she's like, hey, let's go away, like, together, and she's hugging on A-Train. He's looking at her, she's like, yo, I'm not talking about fucking you, but let's get away. And for A-Train, it's like, no, like, you button your shit up, homie, like, you can't do it. Like, she's floundering right now, understandably. And it's so interesting that A-Train has to be the one that's like 10 toes down. Like, no, we got to see this shit through to the end. Because it's like, yeah, we run, like, we'll be running for the rest of our lives. He even has to talk to MM down off him running away because Monique convinced him, like, right, let's just go. Your panic attack should have been a eye-opening thing. Now you're telling me shit's about to get wild and we should run to police? Okay, let's do it. Let's finally be a family. It's something I've always wanted, you know, and after everything that's going down, you know, despite the complications, it's still like the thing, she lost Todd this season to everything, and she can potentially lose MM. That was always a concern, but even more so with just how bad things are. I mean, it's not even his work that's fully committed to like taking him out. It's also the fact is his body's naturally giving out. You know, it's like, right, a panic attack could lead to a heart attack. Like, that could be your undoing, which I didn't even think about it last episode. He immediately thought it was a heart attack because it's like, that's how his dad died. His dad died, once again, he was like, my dad died humped over, like, what was it, a keyboard or a typewriter, whatever the case may be. Because he's talked about it. It's like, this fight with VOD, it got my grandfather, it got my dad, it got my dad's dad, and now it's getting me. He's like, I look in the mirror, I don't even see myself. I'm losing myself to this. Because people had commented, obviously, Laz Alonso has lost weight. And I wonder, did he do it specifically for the role, or did he just lose weight naturally and they just added it to like the making it? No, he's losing weight, not really eating right, and not sleeping well, and he's stressed out because of all of that. So I wonder which one, because, you know, there are actors who get very method in it. If like, okay, this is what the character's going through, let me do this. But it could also just be like, no, I'm just healthier, I lost weight, and they just wrote that into the story because they're like, oh, we could like lean into MM's character because we know the OCD, like stress has always been a part of this character's story and background. So, but I think it is beautiful that A-Train was the one that had to be the one. He's the one that's been pushing A-Train up to be the hero this season and not to run away, stand 10 toes down. And while MM wants to run away, A-Train's like, nah. He's like, when I saved you last episode, that kid, the way he looked at me, it felt like I was really a hero for the first time ever. There were no screaming fans, no cameras. Like, no one's going to ever know I did that except for that kid. And for the first time, it made me feel like a hero. And he's like, that's your fault. You built me up to be a hero. I'm going to see this through. Because you think with everything going down, this is the ends of times. You think, like, this is going to stop here? You think your family's going to be safe and Belize? Like, what's going to happen then? You're always going to just keep running. That's why he's standing here. So it's like, are you just going to run away with everything going down? This fight, I get you want to protect your family, but the best way you protect your family is by sticking through this. So I thought that was just so beautifully done. Although while that was happening, Huey, Butcher, and Annie come across the shooter, I was wondering what was up. Was like the lady in the closet. I'm like, what the fuck is up with that? And she's like, oh my god, seeing Starlight. I was like, okay. And then she attacks Starlight, then cuts Huey. I was like, what the hell? And she's running, and then as she's running and peeling her skin, I'm like, I was like, is she a fucking skinwalker? It's like, to an extent, she's a shapeshifter. I was like, wow. And I love that they've explored this more and more about, right, people with similar abilities, how that's manifested differently in people. So we've met a shapeshifter, that being Doppelganger. His way of shapeshifting is way different from this person's. Like, just kind of like how Termite versus Emma. Their circumstances are very different. Granted, we don't know the full extent. We won't know until season 2 of Gen V the full extent of how Emma's abilities have adapted now post season 1's finale. So, but like I said, I think it's so interesting because, like, also Marie versus Victoria. We haven't seen Victoria do what Marie's been able to do. So could she? Yes, but her main thing is popping heads, which Marie can do too, as we've seen her pop. She's popped a penis and she's popped Kate's arm. So, but it seems like all she has to do is touch you, which I thought was interesting because I was like, well, she did cut Huey, so I was like, and I should have figured because she did touch Starlight. We'll get to that later. So I was like, yeah, but it's like, yeah, how do you deal with an assassin? I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting. An assassin that can shapeshift. I was like, oh boy, this is bad situation. And the end of that scene led to Huey eventually, he was going to, he goes to talk to Vicky. It's like, it's the first time they've directly interacted since the first episode. It is so interesting how those two, like, have so very few scenes together. Like I said, it's like, with the exception of, like, episode 2 is the last time they talked last season. They went the rest of the season not talking, and this is the first time they've directly had a conversation since episode 1 of this season. So I thought that was just fascinating. But Huey, it's like, right, you can't really co-sign all of this. Like, the fact is you're working alongside Homelander. He brings up the camp situation, which is like, right, you didn't know about that. Like, can you really co-sign that? And she is sorry, but it's just kind of, in her mind, it's like, I'm doing what I can to protect myself. Because if I don't do this, Homelander's going to come after me, and I'm trying to put myself in a better position where I don't know whether she believes like I'm doing a little evil for the greater good because I'm protecting my daughter and myself, but I'm also like, I can make things better. Like, even despite her being the head popping person that she is, she's still, like, a lot of her policies are probably things she believes in, where it's like, I can help, like, stuff that she's explained to Marie and Annie and everyone of, like, I can help young girls like me. I can do good, you know, by, and it's like, right, I changed the system from the inside. Sadly, a lot of times when you try to do that, the system bites back and you end up kind of losing yourself in the process. So Vicky is, the sad thing is you can tell, like, what Huey said did get to her, and it might lead to some, like, those breadcrumbs might turn into something in the season finale. We'll have to wait and see. But she even apologized to Huey. She's like, hey, I'm sorry to hear about what happened to your dad. So, you know, because what she does care about Huey, like, their relationship was genuine. Their friendship was genuine. Like, she does mean it when she said, like, all right, you were like family to me. Outside of, like, Edgar, like, you were the closest thing she's ever gotten close. I mean, she even said, like, I wanted to tell you the truth at multiple times, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I was scared how you would react. So, either way, eventually Butcher and Annie make it back to the office, and lo and behold, who's waiting? None other than Deep. Not only him, Black Noir too, and I love that whole sequence where it's just like, well, Annie doesn't have access to her powers. Like, she can't use her powers, but she can fight back. So she's like landing blows on Deep, who talked about, right, I'm done apologizing. No, like, oh, didn't you hear it? Me Too is over. It failed. Like, you tried to cancel me, trying to attack an innocent white man. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean innocent? You assaulted her. You know, once again, he's in his, like, I don't care bag, like, I'm superior, I'm better than you. So, Butcher tried to call out Kessler, but Kessler was giving him the silent treatment because he was giving Kessler the silent treatment. So, I was like, how is this? So, I figured, I was like, oh, he's going to whip it out. So, it's like, we won't see until the season finale what the hell, whatever that looks like, how that manifests for Butcher. We won't see it until then. but I was expecting him to pull it out that scene. I was like, is Deep or Noir about to catch this? Neither one of them did, but oh boy, A-Train coming through to save the day was so dope. I also love that they're hearing Black Noir talk. They're like, wait, he can talk? It's like, right, they don't... Only people on the inside of the Seven knows that that's not the same Noir. I was like, right, the general public, even the boys don't even know that that's not Noir, that the OG Noir is dead. But yeah, the fact is that A-Train came in, so did MM with the gun, shooting at Noir, who's flying. It's like, oh, the fucker can fly now too. He flies out the building, and it's just a Deep. And A-Train, you're like, ooh. It was like, dude, these two have butted heads so much, and now it's like, ooh, time for that get back. And you're doing, I'm like, yeah, look at A-Train go. And then Annie gets her get back. She's been waiting 4 seasons for this. It's like, dude, since episode 1, it took like episode 7 of season 4, but she was whooping that ass. I was like, yeah, beating the shit out of him, kind of giving him the firecracker treatment, then put a weight on top. I was like, hell. I even love, like, she dug into his gills to lift him up, toss him down, and then bam, 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 bam. I was like, I legitimately hopped up. I was like, yo, that shit got me hyped, homie. Oh, shit, that shit was crazy. So they kind of just left it Deep behind because they're like, right, do you have a means of killing him or Noir? Because Noir is going to fly back up here any second. So obviously their office has probably always been burnt, but it's like, despite the CIA connection, which was also the point that Sage and May don't go after them, because with everything we got going on right now, once again, that's why they've never made moves against them so far, is because they do have the CIA like protection. Like, we're going to have like the government right up our asses if we do this. We don't want an organization like the CIA paying too close. They're already paying close enough attention to us, but we don't need them up our asses, considering like we killed some of their operatives. That was kind of Sage's point, but once again, Homelander does what he does. He was tired of Butcher. It's like Sage even said, Butcher has like a couple months left, which we still at this point don't know if that's true, because, well, we know that the thing is killing while making him sick, but that could also be like it eroding everything that is Butcher and just becoming all that's him. So this thing is a parasite, so maybe it is killing him, or it's just eroding, like him dying. It's like him dying, but when it's all said and done, this thing is going to fully control his body and become the new Butcher. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, because of A-Train, now he's been found out to be... It's pretty dope, like, with everything coming full circle, too, because he saved... Him and Annie saved A-Train in the season 1 finale. He's even kind of come through time to time, despite screwing them over, but he came through. He saved Huey in episode 3 of this season. Now he's helped, like, save Annie and Butcher, so it's like, yeah... It all worked out in the end. He goes to Ashley like, yo, we need to run away. But Ashley's like, I can't. She's too afraid to run. So she's just like, right, and kind of wishes him good luck. And so he takes off. And last time we hear, it's like he got out with his brother, probably his sister-in-law. I think we saw her like one time like last season, but also his nephews. He got his family out. So, and I even love Homelander being like, A-Train, how could he do this to me? It's like, what? Why would you? He hates you. He's scared of you. Like, you act like these... You're the one that's like, oh, people fear you, and so they're absolutely loyal to you. It's like, well, I can't believe people's betrayal. It's like, motherfucker, you threatened him to kill him on multiple occasions. Like, why would he like you? He stayed out of fear, and it's like, how could he do this to me? It's like, it's the same thing. I'm sure for him, it's the exact same thing as Maeve. It's like, oh, how could you sleep with Butcher? How could you do this to me? It's like, for one, motherfucker, we're not together. 2, you threatened me and my ex. Just because I was getting close to her again, you outed me. Like, you've done everything to make me hate you. Which I do think it's interesting that when when Sage got fired, which she admitted, like, yo, I let A-Train stay. Like, we all know she's known about A-Train, but we just couldn't figure out why. She's like, right, I let certain information slip. I wanted Butcher and them to know certain things because it was all part of the plan. But once again, Homelander's so short-sighted. He's just like, screw you. You should have filled me in. You shouldn't have kept secrets. She did leave her notebook, which I think is, she definitely left that on purpose. Like, all right, you want to enact the plan? Here's everything you need. You're going to need me for it, but whatever. Either that has to be a play of she wants Homelander to read what's in that notebook for the purposes of enacting whatever she's enacting, whatever her like lone con is. It's like there's no way you're doing this without putting up a fight. It's like, once again, how many moves ahead are you? Because it's like, because that's why I'm curious. Are we going to get to the end of the season? It's like literally everything happened for a reason. Did you let shoot you? Because it's like, once again, you saw Ashley there, and Ashley's like, did you not know that me and Tech Knight, like, she continues to have blind spots, and I'm like, supposed to be the smartest person in the world. Once again, she isn't omnipotent, like, despite being smart, like, even smart people have their blind spots, so it could be like, yeah, just because she's smart, because she's gathered this information and intel, even she has her blind spots, because maybe it's not really a publicly known thing about Ashley and Tech Knight having, you know, a history. So, considering the debaucherous things they're into, you know, they're things, like, it's like, yeah, so, no shade to anyone that's into BDSM or something like that. I don't mean, like, their level of debauchery is something else, especially with Tech Knight, so who knows all that she's, like, up to, so, you know, so I don't want to throw shade at everyone, so I know that was a conversation that some people felt. Apparently that was something online where some people in the BDSM community kind of felt like they were being shamed. I'm like, I don't think that was what that was. But once again, as other people said, like, I'm not in that community, so I can't really speak on like, oh, I don't think you should interpret that way. If you feel that way, you felt that way. So either way, my point is they're into what they're into, so they probably kept it super low key. So that's probably why, like, why Sage had no idea about the Tech Knight and Ashley connection. Like I said, and even MM rolling up on her, she just happens to be in that room. To be fair, it's filled with books and stuff, but it's like, you just happen to be there just when that's happening. That's why I'm like, the end of the season's got to be just like the reveal for Butcher. It's got to be a reveal of like, every single thing that's happened this season has been a calculated plan by Sage, that it wasn't even a percentage chance. Like, it might not just be like, oh, there's a chance this will happen, this will chance this happen. Like, maybe she's 100% certain that things will go this way. She's very good at reading information and stuff, but maybe she's not good at reading people. Like, once again, Homelander ends up being the most unpredictable, but his unpredictability is such a sure thing. So there's layers to that. I'm curious to see where that goes. So she got the can. We'll see. Well, she got the boot. We'll see whether or not that sticks and whether or not this plays into her long con and whatnot. So, but other than that, we had the Huey and Starlight situation, which I was sitting there thinking, like, is it going to be Huey? I was kind of thinking partway through the scene, I was like, is it going to be Huey that's the shapeshifter, or is it Annie? Turns out to be Annie. First and foremost, I got to let you in a little insight. Am I the only one that's like, I mean, I already got that feeling where it's just like, well, we got Annie in the Starlight suit again, because turns out that Huey never threw it away because he thought she would. Well, she did throw it away, but Huey fetched it out of the trash can because he's like, I figured you might regret it later on. Considering, like, there is good and bad to that, but obviously it's like, it's her own suit that she made, and, you know, she's had a version of it since she was a kid, so that suit holds a lot of sentimentality, but everything associated with, like, well, how she became a hero, V and her sister, you know, all that kind of comes with its complications. But my point is, am I the only one that kind of thought it was extra, like, Aaron looked extra sexy, like, in the outfit? I was like, and I think I know what made it, like, I mean, for one, it's like, oh, because, like, it's in the bedroom. I'm like, are you about to have, like, sex? It's like, oh, it's almost like dating a cosplayer. It's like dating a superhero, and, like, it's like, yeah, because you guys you've banged in regular clothes. You've never, like, had sex in her superhero outfit. But other than that, also, I was just kind of like, I think it might also be because her legs were out, because she's not wearing her boots, and I'm like, I think that might have been the thing that sent it over edge, because I was like, she's, like, her legs out, I was like, I'm like, she's looking extra, Aaron's looking like extra sexy in that outfit. And I was like, it makes me go like, am I a leg dude? And kind of thinking in retrospect, I'm like, I appreciate a nice set of legs. So I'm like, I might be a leg dude. I don't think I'm a foot dude, but maybe I'm a leg dude. I don't know. It's just something about it was extra sexy. And then it's like, oh, cool, you're taking your panties off and keeping the, okay, that's hot. I'm also curious, was that like Aaron's actual butt, or was that like a butt double? Because I was like, oh, we're not getting any. I was like, oh, we saw her butt. I was like, I actually don't know if that's Aaron's butt or is that like a butt double. I was like, nice butt regardless. But the reveal of like it was the shapeshifter, I was like, damn, dude, that sucks. it turns out Annie got grabbed at the bar. I was like, that's a beautiful reveal of like, oh yeah, the lady that took a picture with her. It's like, no, that wasn't random. Especially considering how she's on a lot of people's shit list. Hell, her mom jumping down her throat this episode of like, oh yeah, like just because I rewatch it from time to time because I just like see clips and stuff. It's in my brain. If you've seen Barry, definitely gives me like similar vibes to Sally's mom. Sally's mom has the same kind of energy as Annie's mom, and in a lot of that same capacity. But it's like, yeah, like Annie's like, yeah, I'm calling you to try and get you out of town. It's like, despite like the complicated relationship she has with her mom, I'm sure everything with Huey and his mom probably played a part in it. Like her being like, right, I'm gonna reach out to my mom, despite I know how judgmental she's gonna be. She's not even questioning like how much of a hard decision it was for me, because she's like, yeah, bringing a baby into this world where like the world might end. It's like, that was effed up, you know. So that's why it was an agonizing decision to make. But her mom doesn't even consider that, because from the Christian value perspective of, you know, a life is a life, yada yada yada. So it's kind of effed up for her to come at it from that perspective. And it's just like, yeah, I'm talking to you for the first time in all this time because I've tried to contact you, but you've ignored me every time. So it's like, fuck you, mom. So it's like, that relationship continues to be effed, you know. For moments, it does feel like, because she didn't interact, or the only scene we saw of her mom in it was the flashback of her at that talent show, which we also see like, that's why Firecracker is the monster that she is now. It's like, well, Annie's like, I'm sure for her perspective, it's like, my choices are my choices, so I have to take ownership over that. But also like, her mom influenced her and made her into the mean girl that she was. So it's like, yeah, if it wasn't for you, wouldn't have had the Firecracker situation, wouldn't have had my information blasted the way it is. Mom played a foundational part of that, but also Annie recognizes I've played my own role in it. Either way. So now it's like, my point when I went on that whole diatribe is like, oh, you've seen very anti-Starlight perspective on things. She's kind of alone in her own corner. And now it's like, oh, here's someone wanting a photo of her. Turns out it was a shapeshifter. So she's been caught. Her powers like on the fritz. I'm sure that thing that's chaining her down is strong enough to keep her. So how long is it going to be before Huey finds out that's not really Starlight? And the problem is, they're probably going to make Starlight the fall person. I wonder who are they going to make the fall person? Like, since she's disguised as Starlight, it keeps her away, like keeps the group away from her, but it also makes her probably like, oh, the perfect person to make the world hate her. It's like, right, the world's already kind of split on her with everything, so now making her the shooter makes her like public enemy #1 of the U.S., you know, so feels like that might be where she's going. We'll see. Maybe she'll disguise herself as literally someone, or the shapeshifter will disguise himself as someone else. We'll have to wait and see. And then finally, there's also the Frenchie stuff. I almost like let it slip my mind to talk about the him and Kimiko stuff, because Kimiko, rightfully so, is pissed at him. He's like, yeah, I've missed you. She's like, shut up. Like, you could, I went to see you multiple times and you ignored me. And for him, it's like, I was too ashamed. I didn't want to talk to you about it because I felt like you wouldn't understand. Because it's like, you should have talked to me about this. Because she's like, you talked to Annie about a lot of stuff, and she's like, I pieced it together. You killed Colin's family, didn't you? I was like, oh, because even he was like shocked, like she figured that out. She's very perceptive on this stuff, because it makes sense, because she doesn't talk, she's very good at listening. So she's able to kind of piece stuff together. And it's like, right, you're so caught up in your situation, you don't think of like, right, Kimiko's in the same boat. She's done plenty of stuff she's not proud of. And she tells the truth. She's like, do you know why I don't speak? And he's like, yeah, because your brother told me in season 2, like, because you saw your family getting murdered. She's like, no, I never even told Kenji the truth about why I don't speak. Because the pit fights was a situation of, you're meant to be these quiet assassins. You're supposed to kill without making a sound. So the one who makes a sound loses. And so for her, it's like she murdered her first opponent without making a sound. And it's like, that trauma is what really, it stuck with her of like, I have to be quiet, I don't want to suffer the ramifications, because I'm sure if you screamed, they probably would kill you. So because you're like, oh, you can't do your job. Like, if you get hurt, you're supposed to suck it up and just take it, because Kimiko got hurt but still kept it going. And the girl she fought, the one we've met present day from the Shining Light, is, you know, kept quiet as well. So, but the trauma associated with that. And Frenchie's like, right, don't blame yourself. And she's like, how can I not? Like, regardless of it, he's like, I could have easily just let myself die instead of doing what I did to those girls. So many people, she's like, I fought and killed and did what I did. And obviously, the girl she met from Shining Light present day is one of those people, a victim of hers. And it's like, once again, everyone's created their own monsters. And it's just kind of like, how do we go about forgiving ourselves, you know? And that's something that both of them are kind of stuck with. Like, what do we do? How do we even begin? You know, so one way is letting Samir go. It's like, right, once he's done with the virus, we'll let him go and it'll be all kosher. He probably knew ahead of time when Frenchie was like, when he was asking Frenchie, like, okay, this will just be for Homelander and not Vicky, right? He probably saw it in the hesitation in the way Frenchie responded, like, okay, this is meant for Vicky too, so I need to get out of here. But also he doesn't trust them, which is sad because Frenchie was going to let them go. And it's like, oh, Butcher's not going to like that. Frenchie's like, yeah, but the fact is, if he's going to hate it, that must mean it's the right thing to do. And Samir ends up injecting Kimiko, so we had to go full Herschel Walking Dead here and cut off her leg before. I mean, we now know at the beginning of the season she can, like, Deadpool a limb back, so cut off her leg. But it's like, cool, we had the virus. Granted, it's probably not strong enough to kill Homelander, but it probably can kill Vicky. So are we going to aim for Vicky? She's the only one we can aim it at now. So it's up to Frenchie to kind of go ahead and engineer that out of Kimiko's severed leg. So MM's kind of motivating everyone with, like, the glum legs, because he's like, right, is this all we have? Because it's not a sure thing, it's a maybe after everything. But MM's like, yeah, but, you know, we've handled with less, so we got to see this through. So it's definitely going to be interesting. So many storylines. It's going to be wild to see what the fuck this season finale is going to be. And obviously it's going to be setting the stage, the beginning of the end, because next season's the final season. So what is going to go down in this season finale, and what the fuck does that mean for the final season? It's going to be so wild and crazy to see. But that's really all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.